Hi, welcome to the Jack and Glen channel.
I'm my husband, Glen. So,
Yes.
so before we get started, make sure you hit the subscribe button, hit that bell notification so you don't miss any of this interview with Madison from Married at First Sight. It's going to be me today rolling solo. Jack is in the middle of a meeting, so she just had to pop in for a minute and pop back out. Before we get started, Madison, first of all, welcome to the Jack and Glen channel. It's a pleasure to have you. We're looking forward to this interview with you. So good that you're here.
Thank you for having me. I'm very excited. Sorry, we had some audio issues, so I'm taking it from my phone today. So apologies for any of the viewers if it's a little off.
Nah, no problem. We got you loud and clear now, and we worked through all
Perfect.
those issues, so it's wonderful. It's great. So we're going to talk about Married at First Sight, season 18, Chicago season. Back to Chicago for the second time. Before we get started, how if someone asked you or if we asked someone from your past or your friends, family members, to explain who Madison is, how would they explain you to us?
Well, if you ask any of my family and my friends, I'm definitely, extrovert, life of the party. I'm the first one to grab a karaoke machine or get out on the dance floor. I just love to have a good time. I try to bring good energy, good vibes, dancing queen. So that's probably how my friends and family would sum me up.
Gotcha. You talked about when you was growing up. On the show we saw you talk a little bit about your childhood and growing up. Can you give us a little background? How was it growing up? How was see, you're very athletic. So what sports did you play in high school?
Yeah, so I did basketball, softball, I ran track, and then I was also cheerleader. So pretty much all year round was always doing some type of sport. But I feel like that's how my brother and my sister were as well. We've always just been very active people. So I think that's why we did most of the activities during the show, just because I'm always on the move. Always like to be doing something. So um, went to a really small high school. I actually only had 52 in my graduating class.
Oh wow.
So yeah, everybody kind of knew everybody. But I switched schools right before high school, just because I didn't really love the people and the kids that I kind of grew up with. And so going to a new school was probably the best decision for me, especially as going to a smaller one, because I feel like it really brought that sense of community and closeness that I really appreciate now. Because I work for like a really big corporation now. So I feel like it's allowed me to foster relationships in my personal and professional life really well, getting kind of that full circle background, I guess.
Pretty close knit family growing up, siblings, and you guys would do family stuff together. So you're looking for a close knit family now, a
Yeah.
community.
Yeah. So my brother and my sister are super close with both of them. My dad's my rock. He's been my, person that I go to for everything. Have had, a rougher relationship with my mom just my whole life. She was, kind of in and out as I was growing up. So I think that also is something that I've, really looked for in, a future spouse. And, what I want in my life is to have that, really wholesome, close family.
I got you, definitely that. So let's get to a Married at First Sight. How did you get on Married at First Sight? Did you watch the show previously? Did you watch any other seasons coming to this episode, this season before you applied?
Yeah, so I had not really watched a full season. I'd heard of the show, I knew the premise of it and kind of the background, and I'd seen a couple of episodes here and there, but definitely not watched it all the way through. And I was actually reached out to on Instagram, so I didn't actually directly seek it out to apply, but a couple of my girlfriends had watched it before, and they were like, "Hey, this is the real deal. They've got these experts. They pretty much match make you." And I was like, well, dating's a dumpster fire everywhere you go. So might as well give it a shot and let somebody else try to pick somebody for me. So just went along with the process and applied. And then here we are.
Got you. I know it's a extenuating process. Did you enjoy the process? The process that you went through. I know it's a lot going on. There's a lot there. Did you ever think you would make it? Or you were like, you know what? I'm just going to shoot this in the dark, or throw this dart at the target, and whoever sticks, it sticks.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, I really appreciated the process because I think it was so lengthy that to me, I was like, dang, this is, they're doing their legwork. They're really, trying to find people that would be good matches. And so, there's a couple of months at a time where you just don't hear much. And so you're like, well, maybe they just didn't pick me. So, you know, I think it's something that I had no idea that I was going to get picked for it. Honestly, I was like, you know what? Again, take a shot in the dark. Let's try it. And then if they like me and if they think that they can find me a match, you know, even better. And if not, then it was a cool experience to at least go through the process. And so when I got the call of, hey, we want to do some, you know, filming of you at your gym, I was like, oh, okay, that's kind of weird, whatever. And then Dr. Pepper shows up and I'm like, oh my God. Tells me I'm getting married in 2 weeks. So
Got you. You know, what were your preferences when you decided to get married? What was your preferences? What were you looking for in a mate, in your husband?
yeah, I'm glad you asked that because I feel like there's a lot of controversy in what's been shown on TV versus some of the things that I asked for. I know one of the big things is, you know, they asked me my preference of race. And honestly, I had said I've only ever dated Caucasian men just because that's kind of where I grew up, small town, you know, wasn't necessarily my only requirement as I had to date a Caucasian man. I did tell Dr. P I like tall, dark, and handsome, which can, you know, mean a lot of different things.
Hmm.
But I wanted somebody who really valued family and kind of that community and closeness, and somebody whose energy could also vibe off of mine. You know, for me, the personality was a big part of it. Of I want to be able to have some of the similar lifestyles. Like I'm really into fitness, and so the activity side of me, you know, is really important to me. And you know, I really wanted somebody who would be able to do those things with me and want to do those things with me because for me it is a lifestyle. You know, going to the gym isn't just, oh, I'm going to wake up every day and go. It's, hey, I want to lift with a partner, or I want to do, you know, pickleball, or I want to go swimming. You know, it's just kind of that active lifestyle. Um, for me, you know, money wasn't a big thing. I do really well in my career. I even had told Dr. Pepper, you know, I don't mind if I make more money than them. It's all about hard work and the ambition for me. And I think that money can always be made. You can build an empire together with the right person. And so it was more about the drive and having that desire. And then, you know, I really wanted somebody who also wanted a family someday. I'm not in a rush right now, but for me, you know, I do want to build a family and have babies running around at some point. And so those are kind of like my top things that I'd ask for.
Gotcha. How many babies you want to run around?
At least 3. Hope you're listening, David.
Right, at least 3. Got you. You want an odd number, right?
Yeah. I'm one of 3. I think it's a good number. You know, I think David's one of 2. So
You know, it's funny you said that. That's what my wife said when we was talking about having kids. She said, "I'm 2. It's just me and my sister, but she comes
okay.
from a family of 3, and she said the exact same thing. I'm from 3. I think we should have 3."
Yeah, I love
So,
it.
so something like that. So we get to your wedding day, right? We get to
Mhm.
wedding day, and then you're walking down the aisle, and we know that you're matched with Alan.
Mhm.
So when you walk down the aisle, and you see Alan, what are your first thoughts?
Well, and I'm going to pull a David. To be honest with you, I told my family and friends, you know, regardless of who's waiting for me at the end of the aisle, I'm going to have the best wedding day because I had the most support from my family and friends, and there was so much excitement and build up for it that I was like, you know what? If I have any reservations or if anything is on my mind after the wedding day, I'll deal with it then. And the wedding day will be the best, which is exactly what it was. And so, you know, when I saw Alan, he was not my normal like physical type, um, which not a bad thing because I knew that they weren't going to give me everything that I had asked for. But I thought he looked very handsome. You know, he was in a suit, he was all cleaned up, um, and he was just as excited to see me as I was to see him. So, you know, I had the nerves and the rush of just, all right, we're doing this. This is who I'm marrying, and we're going to make the best of it. And I was more excited to learn more about him and who he was than just initial like first attraction because I knew that that was something that might not be there right away and that could potentially build. So yeah.
So y'all guys get married. Conversation wise, when you started talking and y'all started having conversations, was there a lot of similarities or there were more differences and similarities once your guys started having discussions about, hey, I'm Madison, this is blah 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 blah, I'm Alan.
Yeah. So I think we had more differences, at least from my side. You know, he's more artsy, you know, which isn't a bad thing, but he's not super into sports or athletics. And We have different music tastes, different hobbies. So I was seeing more differences in terms of lifestyle and how the things that we enjoy in life, which, those were really important to me. And, I think something similar that we did have in common was, a little bit of our childhoods. Alan had a very traumatic kind of upbringing with some of his past, with his parents' situation. And, I told him about some of my stuff with my mom. And so that was something that I feel like we had a similar way of growing up. So we both valued, wanting to have a close family and wanting to have that for our future, because we didn't necessarily get that, picture perfect kind of family that we had hoped for. So I think for me, I learned more about Alan, of like who he is and what he likes to do. And for me, that was also a huge kind of factor of just trying to see if it was compatible, honestly.
Was there any compatibility, looks, attraction? Where on a compatible scale, where were you at after like honeymoon night, things of that nature? Could you feel a sense at the beginning, like, you know what, this may not work, or you know what, I'm gonna get this my best try?
Yeah, I definitely think the compatibility was much lower on my side. I really tried to make sense of why the experts put us together in my head, and I know that, I think Alan was a good person to, show me that what it's like to be taken care of. Alan is a caregiver, and I think I said that a couple of times on the show, which I think is one of his, best qualities. And I'm very independent, and so letting somebody kind of care for me has been something that I've, tried to work on in the past. And so I think I learned that from Alan, to let somebody care for me and let somebody, be there for me. But I think the more that I got to know Alan and just learn about him, I didn't think the compatibility was there. And I had a really hard time trying to figure out, why did the experts match us? What did they see for both of us that made him compatible for me, or me compatible for him, honestly. I really struggled a lot, because I was in a between a, do I be an asshole to him to not give him hope, or am I nice to him, which could think I'm leading him on. It was, for me, I think it was a double-edged sword of I'm going to lose either way here, because Alan's a good guy, but he's not my guy. And how do you navigate something with all this pressure from the experts and production and, the process, while still trying to be true to your feelings? And I think that's something that I was so concerned with everybody else and not myself and what I wanted. And I wish I would have done that more, because I feel like I would have made the decision to leave much earlier if I would have thought about my thoughts and my feelings, versus I don't want to hurt Alan's feelings. I don't I don't want to let the experts down. I don't want to let, production down. I was thinking about everybody else but myself.
And I think we could see that a little bit, that you're trying to be the nice person
Yeah.
to Alan. That the way it came off TV, you try to be nice. You try to do the things, not try to come off as the bad guy or the
Right.
bad person. And so some of the behaviors were like, you know what, you can see what she's trying, but at the same time, like, why don't you just tell this dude the truth?
I know. And when I watch it back, I think that's like the hardest part for me is I wish I just would have been more honest. And I think there's a way of being not an asshole, not an
Mm-hmm.
asshole honest, because when I watch myself, I'm like, damn, like I'm trying so hard to not be mean, but I'm not being truthful at the same time,
Right.
which is why, like, I don't think that I was leading Alan on, but I can 100% see how he could feel that way. And it doesn't matter if I don't think I'm doing something, like, if I'm making somebody feel that way, then I'm obviously doing something wrong. And watching it, it's, I'm doing just enough almost, which sucks because, he went into this process for the absolute right reasons. I truly believe that. And I did too, and I know that he had so much hope for it. And I do feel bad that he feels robbed of that experience. But I do hope that he's able to see that, I did learn things from Alan, and I hope that he was able to learn things from me. And, I wasn't just trying to shit on him the whole time. I didn't tell him to change his clothes. I didn't tell him to, fix his teeth. I didn't tell him to go to the gym. I was honest about things that I, find attractive in a man, or the things that, I enjoy, I didn't know how else to say those things of, yeah, like I like this, or I prefer that. And it wasn't me trying to say, if you do this, I will like you, which I think is how it looked on the show of, oh, Madison tried to change all these things about Alan and then ended up leaving him anyways, which is not what I was trying to do.
So basically, you saying that in the midst of your conversation, you were making suggestions of what you like, and he was doing these things to change himself to
Yes,
appease you.
absolutely. And for me, I'm like, I never told Alan to change anything about himself, ever. I was never like, you need to do this, you need to do that. Because one, I wouldn't do that anyways. I don't do that to David, I don't tell somebody like, you need to do this, you need to change this about yourself. If Alan wants to wear whatever he wants to wear, if Alan wants to, do whatever he wants, like, that's his prerogative. And I would have never told him to, you need to go to the gym, you need to do this, you need to do that, especially when I know that I wasn't 100% there on the feelings. He took what I said and tried to make those adjustments, I think thinking as if it would change my mind or push me in the right direction.
That's what I was going to say. I know you can't see me. I had to chime in. Hi. That's what I was going to say. It's like, a lot of times we don't actually ask people to make changes, but the way we talk about it, people take it upon themselves to make the changes. And I can definitely see, what you're saying is like, I didn't tell him to make these changes, but, or if you make these changes, I'll like you more. But
Right.
maybe sometimes people have that mindset. If I change this, maybe she'll like me more.
Exactly.
And the other thing I wanted to say, and then I'm gonna get back to
Get back to your meeting.
And so, how much different do you think your experience would have been if you had told Alan straight up, like, I'm not feeling this. I'm not feeling this. Would you have been able to? You think you all would have been able to just continue to finish the 8 weeks and just, develop a good friendship and just have fun? Or what do you think?
That's a really good question, because part of me feels like he would have still tried to continue, because to be honest with you, like, we had conversations off camera where I said, Alan, I don't see this as forever. I'm not feeling it. There is no connection. There is no spark there. Like, we had a lot of off camera conversations where those things were addressed. I didn't flat out say, I don't like you, let's stop this experiment. But I feel like he was trying to convince me to stay or to like me. And, if I would have just said, hey, I'm not feeling it, what do you want to do? Do you want to continue the 8 weeks, or do you want to get a divorce right now? I'm curious of what he would have said. I don't know, because obviously we didn't do that. In a perfect world, I wish that's what would have happened, because maybe that friendship would still be there. But I still feel like if I would have pursued David, I don't think it would be there at all. I feel like it's a weird connection of, I don't think Michelle and I would be friends after that, to be honest. And I don't think Alan would want to be a part of mine and David's life, because it's just probably too close to home. We all went through this experience together. And so regardless of if we decided at 2 weeks in, hey, we're done, and then David and I wanted to pursue each other later, I think it still would have created some weirdness. Probably not as much as, obviously everything that happened, because
Right.
we just decided to put some dynamite on everything and blow it up. But I don't think it would be, everybody's all jolly and friends still. I think there would still be some weirdness there.
Yeah, we'll get to that. We're slow rolling there. We got a little bit of time, but we're getting there, right? One thing that a lot of the viewers saw was the first night you guys came back off the honeymoon, you went out and you left Alan at the home. And I'm like, dude, she's, and I think I said on our review, like, she's out of this. She's not even into this marriage. From the first night, I'm like, she went out. They just got back, and she's gonna hang out with her friends. She's not into this dude.
Yeah.
What made you go out that night?
I was probably more anxious than I've ever felt my whole life. And looking back on it, I wish I would have just stayed the night, even if it was just, let's go to bed. Because, we had just spent, 7 days in Mexico, 24 hours, 7 days straight, filming during a lot of that time. And there was so much, like, over romanticizing of the honeymoon for me, I wasn't there yet. You know, I wasn't ready for the romance. I wanted to just get to know Alan. And I think I mentioned this in the other YouTube thing that we did. You know, I wish we got a couple of days before the honeymoon to just have one-on-one time and then do the honeymoon, just to get to know each other first, because I feel like it was just thrown into it. Hey, we're on a honeymoon with, 8 other people, doing all these romantic dates, having kind of these different conversations that, maybe makes you uncomfortable. So as soon as we got back, I was like, I need my people and I need some me time, because I was overloaded and overstressed with everything. And I was kind of running away. And honestly, that's something that I'm working with my therapist on, is not running away from situations and confronting them, because I was stressed and I was definitely freaking out of, why did I do this? What am I going to do? Is this right for me? Alan's not a bad guy, but I don't know if he's my guy. And so I went out with my friends, because my friends are my family. And it wasn't to go to a nightclub and, party all night. It was literally to hang out with my girlfriends and just talk about the week and kind of break everything down.
So your friends more your outlet. Did you have any cast members that were your outlet I'm feeling stressed out, I'm feeling tired, that you would ever talk to?
Well, yeah, I mean, David, obviously, like him and I think connected very, very quickly. Of just, his experience was very different than what I was going through, but because it was almost like reverse. But we were both able to kind of give each other advice, and nobody else, like even though my friends were my outlet, nobody knew what I was going through, right? It's like, they don't know how I'm feeling, all the emotions that I'm going through. And so having someone like David who is able to be like, hey, keep trying, keep your head up and just try to be yourself, and be honest with yourself of like what you want and how to move forward. And I think that relationship is what started, obviously, me and David, of just kind of that comfort. And, I know some people are like, oh, they trauma bonded because of, their experience. And yeah, maybe initially for sure, maybe we both found comfort in each other of, hey, we're both struggling, but it turned into so much more than that, because of just the person that David is. And I think the person that I am. And we got to learn about each other, I think, in a way that we weren't connecting with our partners on.
How often did you find you guys talking about your own relationships?
I mean, right out of the gate. I mean, because when we got back from the honeymoon is kind of when because we were filming pretty much every single day, right? And they were filming around our work schedules. And so the morning time was the time that, could go to the gym, honestly, because we'd always film after work. And so I think that first week after the honeymoon is when we were, in the gym together, and it was, hey, how's it going? Because I didn't really know. I knew that Michelle was not feeling on David whatsoever, but I didn't know to what extent, right? Like, I didn't know when we got back that they lived in separate bedrooms. I didn't know that they had never really communicated. And so I think that first week initially was when we were really kind of, hey, how are you doing? What's going on? Trying to give each other like advice. And I think after that first week is kind of when we also just started learning about each other. I was like, hey, like, how's your family life? What do you do for work? The casual conversation kind of came after that. Yeah.
Yeah, there. And we'll get to David in a second, but there's another scene that we talked about a lot. You and Alan had a competition, the tennis situation. Right?
Yeah.
You had a tennis match. He won, and he asked for a kiss.
Yes.
You gave him your cheek.
Yes.
But you gave him your cheek, but we see you and David kissing, and I was like, hold up. As I got later on the season, I'm like, she gave this guy the cheek off a tennis match, but she don't have a problem kissing David. So what's the difference between the two?
Oh, I mean,
and why was it hard for you to give Alan a peck, but you were able to kiss David?
Well, I mean, for Alan, there was no romantic chemistry whatsoever from my side. And I think when we had made that bet, because I think I had said I wanted him to like run around the tennis court or something like that. And, when he said he wanted to kiss, for me, I was like, a kiss means more. It means it's going to mean more to him than it's going to mean to me. And I didn't want to lead him on in that situation.
Got you. I got you. I got you on that. So now we get to, you and Alan are, we know where you and Alan stands, right? And so we're gonna fast forward for time's sake. We're gonna fast forward. So now, we find out this whole text message situation with David, right? David sends the text to Michelle. Michelle gets the text message, and so you never received the text message.
Nope.
Okay.
I will swear on anything.
No. He verified you never received a text message. The question is, if you had received a text message, what would your response have been to David?
I would have been like, "What are you doing?" First of all, I've never heard it. I've gotten some off the wall shit before, DMs. Men are dumb, but that was a new one for me. So I don't know what I would have responded. I probably would have just been like, "I think you're too drunk. Maybe go home." I knew that I liked David during this time. I felt a connection. I feel like I thought of David as somebody who I would want in my life, regardless if it was romantic or not. When I first met him, I was like, dang, this guy's got great energy. He's always smiling, positive vibes, making the best out of every situation, which I think is why I got so close to him, of just, hey, you're somebody who I could be friends with, And I know, however people want to interpret that, like, our relationship did start as friends because we were there for each other. Anybody that knows David is going to say that he is the most loving, caring, and down-to-earth person you'll ever meet. I mean, he's such a caring person and so sweet that it's just easy. It's easy to talk to him. It's like, there's some people that you just feel really comfortable with, and he's one of those people. Like, the moment that we started talking, I'm like, dang, like, you're a good listener. You know exactly how to have a conversation. And so for me, it was more of an emotional connection with David. I felt very, close with him because of the conversations that we had. I think from David's side, and seeing it is a totally different thing, because I didn't truly know how bad it was between him and Michelle. Like, I knew it was not great, but watching it, I understand why he felt so beat down. I understand why he felt berated and bullied, because it was wild to watch. And I feel like he latched on to me. And I've said this before, like, I think he liked me way more than I liked him at first, because of just his situation and that connection that he was getting with me than instead of with Michelle.
When did you discover that like for David? I know, my wife tell a story all the time. One day she was looking outside, sitting out a window of college, and realized my car was gone. Like, you know what? I think I like Glen.
Oh.
We was friends. We were friends. So, and so one day she says, you know what? I miss Glen. So when did you start feeling that, you and David talking as friends, or talking as people in this experience? When did that feeling come? You know what? I think I could be with this guy. I like this guy.
So I think it was, honestly, I know I'm going to say the gym, but I remember one conversation that we were having, and, he was talking about his brother and his family. And I think the way that he talks about his family is one of the things that I love the most about him, because he's so close with all of his family, and his parents are amazing. His brother's amazing. And I think the way that he spoke about them, and he told me like a pretty, intimate story of just a personal thing with them. And I was like, wow, I'm like, this guy has a lot of depth to him, and he's got those qualities of the family that I could see that I really want in my life. And I think that was a moment of like, dang, I like this dude, and I feel like this could be something later on.
So you said later on. So was in your mind, was it like in your mind later on, you're like, you know what, dang, because you mentioned it earlier, like, this may be complicated. If I like this guy now and later on we get together, this may be a little bit complicated. Did that run through your mind as well?
Oh, for sure. I mean, because when is the right time for that? I think in my mind the whole time I was like, okay, if we both like each other, how does this work? What are the rules here? I think there was so much stress of, what do we tell Michelle? What do you tell Alan? Like, what would you tell the experts? What do you tell production? Like, is this something that's happened before? I think this was a situation where I don't think anybody's ever experienced it. And, I haven't seen all the rest of the season, so I don't know if people have, started dating after, the show's wrapped up or not. But how do you handle this situation? Like, everyone keeps giving their opinions of, oh, you guys should have just been upfront and honest about how you were feeling. I'm like, yes, obviously we should have. And I will take full accountability for that. And I wish we could go back in time and change things, obviously. But it's so easy for people to, throw stones and judge of how they would have handled the situation when they've never experienced something like this. Because, yes, we were married to Alan and Michelle. It was a stranger that we married, not somebody we've known for years, not somebody that we even picked for ourselves. These were people that were chosen for us, that we had no emotional or romantic connection with. There was no physical intimacy outside of a kiss on a wedding day. Like, these were people that we were not connected to. So how do you handle a situation like that? I would love to hear everybody else's thoughts of how they would have handled it, because they've been given plenty of shit on the internet.
Yeah, we get to the internet stuff too, because you guys are getting run through the mud online. Again, your feelings are involved. So my question to that is, you have this feeling. We know David has these feelings because, again, he's had these feelings. He's like as we talked to him, we interviewed him. He's like a school kid, right? He's like a high school kid, laughing, giggling, and you can see it that he's really infatuated with you. So did y'all guys ever say, you know what? Let's wait this bad boy out. Let's wait out till the 8 weeks. Let's wait out to the decision day. Was that ever discussed, or that was in your mind, or that was at your mind? I'm going to wait until.
Yeah, it was never discussed. We never talked about, like, hey, this is our relationship and this is what we're gonna do. Like, we had zero plan, obviously, because that's why, especially during the couples retreat, when we have that cringy ass scene where I'm telling him that I like him, it's cringy because that was the first time that I actually said it out loud. Hey, I like you. Who does that these days, right? Like, if somebody likes you, you just like swipe right or swipe left, or you just say like, hey, you're good looking. So that whole conversation was forced, but it was real because it was the first time that we had sat down and been like, hey, I like you too. What do we do next? I think we were just kind of going through the motions the rest of the time and trying to wait out the 8 weeks of just, hey, we both know that there's no connection there and we'll just finish this out and then maybe we can experience this together afterwards. But we never had a conversation about it because I don't think either of us really knew what the other one wanted, to be honest. Like, I think the like was both there on our sides, but there was no clear, hey, we're gonna do this afterwards.
You skipped to the retreat. The retreat, David seemed as he said he was protecting you the whole time. Did you feel the protection? Because you got up at one moment at the table. Were you feeling the protection from David? Like, he's trying to keep this whole thing under wraps, like the whole text message, who it was going to. Did you feel that you were being protected by David at the retreat?
I don't know. If I felt protected or not. I'm trying to figure out how. I mean, I got up from the table not because of the subject, but it was because I think every time that we got together as a group, there was always so much drama. Knowing that I was part of the drama, unintentionally. I think there was just a lot going on that whole time. And I feel like in my gut, I was like, something's going to happen. Something's going to blow up. This just doesn't feel right. And watching it and seeing all these like side conversations that were happening was kind of wild because I had no idea that any of this was going on. Like, I was completely blind to every, little Michelle Carmen Sandiego interview that she was having with the other cast members. But I think seeing it now, especially with where David and I are at, I definitely can feel that protection. I mean, he's always trying to protect me. I know everything that he does. I mean, he's my rock for sure. And so it's interesting watching it back because during this whole text message time, like, we weren't communicating. Like, he didn't tell me that he sent this text message. I would have told him to say a better lie. Like, this whole food dumpling thing was god awful. Or I would have just said, hey, let's just call it what it is, So it's interesting watching it all play back because I think we were both living two very different situations from the start of the text message until the couples retreat when everything kind of blew up.
Michelle comes to you and asks you flat out about David. Um, you stuck to your guns. You stuck to your guns. Um, question is, what did? Let me ask it this way. You keep telling me, I give you my phone, but there was messages missing off your phone. What happened to those messages?
Oh, I just deleted it for sure. I mean, there was nothing bad, but just any communication between David, because I thought that I was being attacked, which I was for good reason. You know, I'm not going to back down from that. I think when somebody targets you like that, especially in that type of situation, I do feel like if she would have asked me off camera, I would have been more honest.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think in the back of my mind, I'm like, oh, great. You know, there's cameras right here. This is going to be out there for the whole world to see. And how is this going to look if I'm not able to articulate it right? And everybody else is here. This is going to, there's been, you know, we've been filming for however long today. We've been drinking all day long. Like, there are so many factors that are not in my favor right now. So you go into fight or flight mode. I mean, I was trying to protect myself at that point, which, you know, clearly didn't work very well. And watching it back, like I wish I would have just said, hey, the text message could have been for me. Shouldn't have been, but it could have been for me. You know, David and I do have a connection. Let's like talk about it. I wish I could have done it that way because I feel like things would have transpired a lot differently. I still feel like it wouldn't have been great, but it wouldn't have been as bad at the same time. Because I think that's what, and I think that's what Michelle keeps going back to, is it's like she's just upset about the lying. She knows that she didn't care for David. Like, we all know that. But it's like she was upset about the lying, which I get it. Like, no one likes to be lied to. I don't find pride in watching those episodes, right? Like, it's not something fun for me. I don't enjoy seeing myself in that position that I put myself in, you know, and I will take accountability for that, and I will, you know, always wish that I could do things differently. But this is an unexplainable experience that no one else has ever done except for the people who've been the other cast members on this show. And I didn't handle myself perfectly. David didn't handle himself perfectly. A lot of people didn't handle themselves perfectly. But I will always hold on to that. Getting David out of this was the best thing that could have happened, and I won't ever regret that.
You know, you mentioned earlier, how did you feel about the terrible lie David gave about the text? Did you tell him later, like, dog, you couldn't come up with nothing else?
Oh, I've given him so much shit, especially because watching it is so different than than just hearing it, right? Oh, I was like, I think he's gotten more crap for that than from everybody. Like, even my brother was like, David, that's what you're gonna say? That's what you're gonna say? But probably the worst lie of all time on any reality TV show ever. Ever.
You know, you guys talk about all the time. You know, it looked bad. It was handled bad. It came off wrong, but you still say that you're good people. And I know people have been giving you on the internet a lot of slack about how can you still be a good person if you're, I'm going to use the word, cheating with somebody else's husband, right? So how can those who are watching and those who may watch this later explain how are you still a good person if all this was going on behind the scene?
Well, I do want to address one thing, and you know, I'll probably get more shit about this later, so whatever. I think it's interesting how people consider, and I'm not saying that what we did wasn't wrong. I'm not going to take accountability for it. But using the word cheating to me it's laughable, because I don't think it's in the same ballpark as, I think it was, you know, maybe deceptive, but I don't think what we did was cheating, because yes, we signed a piece of paper that we were married. But like I said, Michelle and David had zero connection, no physical intimacy, no emotional connection, nothing. Basically like a green card marriage. Me and Alan, yes, Alan had more feelings for me, so maybe that's more of where he sees it as cheating. But again, no physical intimacy, no emotional connection. Like, how can you compare someone that you've known for 35 days to situations where, you know, 10-year marriages, couple-year relationship? It's just, I don't see that it's the same thing. I'm not saying it's not wrong. I'm not saying that, like, not trying to give an excuse to it, but that me and David are these cheaters, you know, have your prerogative. You know, I'm sure they probably have some stuff they need to work on too. But I don't think that what we did was cheating. And I'm going to say that because that's what I feel. And everybody else is entitled to their own opinions. We are human and we make mistakes. And I think it's what you do after those mistakes that defines who you are as a person. So for people to think that David and I are these awful people, I encourage them to look at themselves and say, when have you ever not made a mistake? What did you do after that mistake? Because if you learn and grow from the decisions that you make, I think you can always be a good person, right? You don't have to stay in this mindset and live in the past. You can move forward. And I think the things that David and I have done together as a couple and with our families and with our friends, like, people are going to love us and people are going to hate us. You know, I encourage the people that hate us to really think about why. Why do you hate us so much? Why do we bother you so much? And maybe do some self-reflection of figuring out what's truly bothering you and find peace within yourself.
Gotcha. Jack got a question.
Well, it's not a question, but you made the point that I was making. Like, it's totally different. Like, y'all are still strangers.
Yes.
I'm not discounting the
Right.
deception and
Yeah.
the dishonesty when it comes to feelings, but
Yes.
like when we talked to David, and me and my husband had this conversation too, but I was like, it's different if, like, I've known him since college.
Right.
We go back to, I don't even want to say what year, I'll give my age, but I mean, I'm not ashamed, but it's different. Like, when you're invested in somebody versus, like, it's like at this point you're invested in the process, not as much invested in the person. So yeah.
Madison dropped off, so we're going to see if we get her back in a minute. And so as we continue this, as see working on getting her back, we're having some internet issues earlier. But it is the process of a thing. It is how you work it out. And like I said, me and Jack had a big discussion about this a long time ago, about the difference between marriage, cheating is cheating or not cheating. What is cheating? Defined it, just because you're not connected in that relationship with somebody. Those things are the things that we talked about. And
It's right.
not saying it's right, but the things that we looked at, right? And so some of the things that we talked about and we discussed from there. So it is a two-way street, and we got Madison back. Hey, there you go. You're back.
So sorry.
No, you back. We good. So we're just talking about the deception and the cheating, how people look at it different ways, right? Because some people
Right.
look at it cheating, some people don't look at it cheating. You guys wasn't invested. Some people look at it as being a real marriage. Some people look at it as being a TV show, right? There was some other cast members say, you know what? I was just on here for whatever, right? There's been people on here in the past on this show just for promotion, right? And some was on here really invested in gun ho 100% into the marriage. And I think you guys with 100%, it's just that your partners didn't match. And if you had the partner that you was matched with, might have been 100%. So that goes to the question: if you were matched with David, do you think you guys would be where you're at right now?
I do think that we would have been able to build to where we are now. It might not have happened as fast because I think with the show there's so much pressure of the cameras and the conversations and production, and so you kind of feel forced to be a little bit, not disingenuous, but maybe not as authentic as you would just in a casual conversation. And so I think that David and I would have definitely hit it off from the very beginning. Like, I think our energies are very in line. I think if he would have told me that he smokes and lived in his parents' basement, I'd have been like, bro, can you just wait 24 hours before you unload this on me? And then we'll talk about it tomorrow. So I definitely think that we would have had a connection. But I think what we went through together and where we are now, we are so strong because of that, because we really fought for our relationship, and we've fought through the haters and the trolls and the people that are, oh, this is going to last 5 seconds. And, you're gonna lose him how you got him type of mentality. And so I think that we are stronger because of everything that we went through together. But I definitely think that if I would have walked down to the aisle to him, I think we would still be together for sure.
Do you have any fear about losing him in the same way that you got him? And I know people say that all the time.
Yeah, absolutely not. I mean, I think that David is one of the most genuine, and I'm gonna say honest people, even though he's a terrible liar, which is a great thing, right? You know, he's a
Right.
terrible liar. We will take that for what it's worth. But no, I think the love that we both have for each other is unbreakable, to be honest. And you know, people are always going to have their opinions. You know, we have been getting a lot of support from people online, but we've also been getting a lot of hate. And you know, I think that the people that are hating so hard, I would really again encourage them to, what if this was your daughter? What if this was your son? What if this was your neighbor's friend? You know, treat people the way that you would want to be treated. And if you love Alan and if you love Michelle, go for it. That doesn't mean that you have to hate me and David. You know, I think that there's a way to support me and David or Alan and Michelle without hating on anybody, right? We're people, we're human beings, and we're imperfect. And I think there is too much hate in this world for people to focus on, and try to focus on the love story. Like, even though it's a crazy one, it's a pretty damn good one.
Hey, it's one your future 3 kids can watch, and
Damn
it will
right.
be always.
I'll be like, you're
Well,
skipping
they
episodes
can, I guess they can
3 and 6.
watch now on a Peacock, but they can watch later on whatever streaming service they want to watch or whatever YouTube channel they want to pull up and see all the commentary, because I don't think YouTube's going anywhere anytime soon. So your
Yeah.
kids can go back and watch the story. Hey, Mom, look what I found on YouTube. You know,
Yep.
um, so I want to go back to the retreat real quick, because there's another point I want to make over the short time that we have left. You went to David and you told David how you feel. What made you not go to Alan and tell Alan what was going on? Because you knew Michelle was doing. It's 2-part question. Michelle being a super sleuth. You know, some call her Nancy Drew, some call her Velma from Scooby Doo, but she was doing her. She was doing her
Her detective
investigative
work.
work, right? Whatever. Insert your favorite cartoon female detective there, right? So the 2 questions is, when she was sleuthing around, what made you not go and tell Alan, hey, Michelle may come to you and say X, Y, Z, or why didn't you come clean to Alan first? And what we saw, you came clean to David.
Yeah, honestly, that's a really good question. I think I was being, you know, influenced a little bit by production. You know, I was very confused. There was a lot of alcohol during that day. I think it was like 2 in the morning at this point. And my producer was asking me like, well, what do you want to do? What do you want to do? Do you want to talk to David? And I was like, sure. And so I think in my mind, it was a quick out. And I don't know, when I watch it back, like, I wish a lot of different things. Like, I wish I would have gone to Alan first. And I wish, even after I talked to David, I wish I would have been the one to talk to Alan instead of David talking to him. Because, again, looking at the experience, right, it was, you know, me and Alan's relationship, you know, or our process. And I should have been the one to be honest with him. Because, to be real with you, Alan and I never actually got to have a conversation afterwards about any of it.
Mm.
We never spoke about it, you know, like, we never actually sat down and had an adult conversation. It was like, that was the end of everything. He didn't want to speak to me, which is totally fine. Like, I don't blame him whatsoever for not wanting to. But it was a really shitty way for everything to end and to not have any type of closure after that of, hey, this is, you know, this is what happened. I am sorry. And versus it being more chaotic.
Got you on that. You know, I know there was one point where you wanted to talk to Alan, and M was like, "Nah, this ain't a good time. This is not not right now." And I know after that point, he didn't answer your phone calls, didn't answer your text messages, anything of that nature. You know, what were you feeling in that moment? You know, what was Madison feeling in that moment? Not production, not anybody else. What were you feeling in that moment when you saw Alan get upset? You knew he was upset. What were you feeling?
I felt so sad and disappointed in myself. Like, I've never wanted to be the cause of somebody's pain. And it was a realization for me of like how much more invested he was than I was, to be honest. Because, you know, Alan really never said how he was feeling. Like, he had made some hints at it, right? But he was never like, you know, I really want this to work. I really like, I think the first time that I heard it was I can't remember. It was in our kitchen, and he's like, I do have a lot of care for you. And I was like, oh shit. I mean, but I was like, I care for you, Alan. And so seeing him get that upset in that moment, I was like, man, I just hurt this person really badly. And I felt really defeated and just destroyed, because I never want to hurt anybody's feelings, and I never want to put somebody through something like that, or just hurt them. So I think right after the couples retreat, like I went straight to my girlfriend's house, and I just like laid in bed for 3 days, and didn't eat, didn't sleep, just felt awful.
Michelle's trying to speak to you, and you like, can we do this now, babe? You want to do this now? At the retreat, how are you feeling towards her at that moment? Because there's a lot of different emotions going on at the same time. You got David in his room watching baseball and The Sopranos. You got Alan who's kicking cabinets and doing all that. You got David and Alan who had a conversation outside, and you don't know what's going to happen with that conversation if these two males are going to have an issue. And then you got Michelle who, just got her aha moment because
Right.
I'm 100% right. So what was your feelings towards Michelle at that time?
I think at the retreat, I was more just like, I just didn't really want to deal with her, because I think I was just more emotionally drained from knowing what was going on with Alan, knowing the conversation I just had with David. Like, for me, I think I felt like Michelle was just trying to prove a point. And I was like, I don't really care to deal with you, which is why I think there was more hostility between us after the fact, because it was a hill that she wanted to die on so badly. And I get it. Sure. I will give her the credit. She had this instinct, and she was right. I just don't agree with the way that she went about it. And that's just my feelings.
Mhm.
I'll probably get more shit for that too, but I think that I just felt a little bit more indifferent to her of, why do you care? Honestly.
And so she cares, and then you guys get together. I think you're at the warehouse now. You come with a different energy towards Michelle. What was up with that
Yeah.
different energy? Put in a ring with me, that type of energy. Where did the energy come from, and why were you the hostility there towards that situation?
Yeah, that was probably my least favorite episode, to be honest. I actually talked with my therapist a lot about it, because that anger and hostility is something that I don't want to have towards anybody. And I think when we came in that night, I was expecting to be kind of berated again, because it was the first time we were seeing everybody since the couples retreat. It had been a couple weeks, and I think after being, yelled at by the experts, pretty much the conversation with everybody, and then kind of getting just completely outcast almost. I was expecting people to have their opinions and go in on me and David, and so I came in, ready to defend, and that's exactly what you saw, right? It was more of a defensive, not really remorseful or empathetic, and so I think as soon as the conversation got started with Michelle, it was just all gas, no brakes. It was all right. Well, now I'm going to defend myself, because you're coming at me, and I'm going to come at you twice as strong. And I wish I would have just gone into that night being like, hey, we are both sorry that you guys got hurt. We didn't mean to, and kind of move on, because I feel like it was just adding on to the chaos. And I will always, I had seen Michelle after that. Like, there was a couple of things that we did in group activities after filming, and I had tapped her on the side, and I was like, hey, I'm glad that we can be cordial together. And I never want to see myself like that, and I'm really doing my best to not be in that defensive mindset anymore. And so, not my favorite. I'm not always like that, and I working on doing better.
As we get ready to close here, it seemed like after everybody knew, you and David became more relaxed.
Yeah.
The relationship evolved as soon as as you want to say, the monkey got off your back, you dropped the weights fell off, and we saw that there seemed more of a relaxation and more of a, I want to say, some people say throwing it in people's face, but it seemed like you guys got more relaxed with everything that was going on after the fact.
Yeah. And I will say that the timing of everything is different as how it was shown. It was a little bit longer than, just 2 days after everything, and we're jumping into a relationship. So I will just say that people can take that as they want, but it did start off very slow. Like, we did the golf outing. We actually did another like gym date. It was very just casual. And I think it took a couple of weeks before we actually, went on a romantic dinner date. And then it was honestly like one of our last days of filming that he did the birthday dinner for me. So it was at the very, very end where I was more hesitant. I think David was ready to jump headfirst into it with me, and I was definitely a little bit more reserved because I was like, hey, there's a lot going on. If we're gonna try to do something, I want to make sure that we're doing it for the right reasons and not just because it's you and me getting like outcast from everybody and feeling that kind of pressure. And so I think towards the end, I let my guard down and I was like, you know what? I came into this show to find my person. And I would be doing myself a disservice if I didn't fully explore this with David. And as soon as I did that, I mean, our relationship just catapulted. And as soon as filming got done too, like we knew that we couldn't do, a ton of stuff publicly, obviously, but no one really knew about the show yet. So I think we really took the time to just fully get to know each other and really get to explore like who we are as people, what we're looking for, our values, and everything just lined up so well. And ever since, it's just been continuing to grow.
Got you. Backtrack in the last two questions. One was there was a scene with you and Alan, and you got emotional because you thought Alan was calling you a party girl, but yet we see you going out all the time. Do you think it was misinterpreted, or
yes.
how do you feel on that?
I wasn't upset that he was calling me a party girl. I will be the first one. I told you I'm the life of the party. I love that. I was upset because he used the word transactional when he was referring to me, which my interpretation of that was like, so you basically think I'm like a girl who just fucks dudes, excuse my language, with no emotional connection, right? Like, to me, to use the word transactional in any description of a woman is super disrespectful. And my reaction might have been, exaggerated, but I think for me, there were so many situations where Alan always said the wrong thing and stuck his foot in his mouth of like, we had such a fun night. And then when asked his first impression of me, he said transactional. And that to me just rubbed me the really wrong way. I don't care if you think I'm a party girl. And people online, yes, I love to go out. I love to order shots. I'm 31 years old. Like, sue me. I don't care. I will be. If you come out with me, I promise you will not have a bad time. So I didn't care about the party mind aspect. It was the transactional comment. That's what did me in.
Got you. And we're wrapping this up now. For those who are watching, what are your parting thoughts to those who are watching, those who have a interpretation of who Madison is? And so
for the people out there that are giving me love, thank you so much. I really appreciate all of your support, and I'm glad that you're able to see the real me. And for the people who are still not enjoying me, well, if I bother you that much, you don't have to watch any of my content. You can stay far away from my page. I will block you very quickly. But also just try to see the real me if you can. I mean, I don't think people got to see the real authentic Madison on Married at First Sight because I was more of a shell of a person. And I do think that the real me is genuine and authentic. And if you give me a chance to show that, I think you'll see it, and I hope that you do. And if you don't, that's okay too. I mean, I don't have to be everybody's favorite, but I hope that you at least chill on the hate so much because I don't think anybody deserves it. Anybody. So.
All right. With that being said, Madison, we just want to tell you thank you. How can people who rock with you follow you? People that rock with you, how can they follow you? Because haters gonna rock with you anyway, but those who really rock with you, how can they follow you on social media?
So my Instagram is Madison Myers 93. That's how you can follow me. That's the most active social media that I'm on. So if you love me, follow me. If you hate me, follow me. But if you post nasty shit, I'm gonna block you real quick. Got real happy with that block button. So but thank you so much for having me. This was great. Hopefully you were able to get some more answers to your questions, and happy to do it.
Yeah, thanks for rocking with us. Thanks for answering the questions. Thanks for being honest. Thanks for being open. We appreciate you. Guys, before we leave, make sure you hit the subscribe button, hit that bell notification. Make sure you don't miss any of our videos. And once again, we want to tell you bye, Jack. I think you want to hop up our meeting and say bye too. Come on.
Bye. Thanks, Madison.
All right. Bye. Thank y'all. Have a good night. Bye.
Thank you.